Greetings! This is a tutorial on Bach's Short Prelude in C major, BWV 939. This is a great piece to use in teaching chord analysis and blocking. It's in 4/4 time and is allegro, so a little on the fast end, although I think I say this every video, master it slow before you play it fast. When I introduce this piece to students, I introduce it as a theory lesson before I introduce it as a repertoire piece. And I have the students block each measure into two chords, two halves. The first half is one chord, or the first two beats is one chord, and the beats 3 and 4 is the next chord. And the piece consistently does that all the way up to measure 13. And then we have some scale work, which it is in specific keys, and we'll talk about that. But from 1 to 13, which is the majority of the piece is only 16 measures long, it blocks beautifully. So first I just have students learn it as analysis. So I'm going to take you through the blocking first. And this is also a great way to learn a piece, to block it out first, because it will give you the best fingering to use. Like, you will be able to see which fingering is most efficient when playing a piece like this. So we have the first two beats is C major, and then becomes C7, and then we have F major. C7 is the dominant of F. It stays F major. Then it goes to G, G7, which is a dominant of C, and we are still in C. And now we have a D7, which doesn't really belong in C, so we must be going to G, because D7 is the dominant of G. And then we have E minor, and then A minor. Ooh, you're temporarily modulating. A minor 7, back to D, and D7. And then you have these G, G7, C, still C. I believe this is F sharp diminished, which makes sense because the next chord is G, so the leading tone to G. And then a nice G7, and we have C, C7. Now I believe this part of the scale functions in the key of F, which makes sense because we were just in C7, but now we have B natural, so we're modulating to G without an F sharp. And C, you have another G and C. So after a student learns how to play it blocked, then we start playing it as written and focusing on some of the more technical details of this piece. The two places that I like to take apart are the mordents on measures 9 through 11, and also the scale on 14, and sometimes we go over the trill on 15 too. It just depends on the experience the student has. So these mordents are very fun, but the big trap that a lot of students fall into is that they'll slow down for the mordents. So I'm going to start like a measure ahead, 2 measures ahead, no, 1 measure ahead, to demonstrate how a student might improperly play this. So as you see, it gets really lopsided that way. So the student needs to be able to confidently play these in beat, in rhythm. So a way to do this is to have them learn the right hand by itself, sometimes with a metronome. And so what they're doing there is they're just learning how to play it evenly. And then when they add the left hand, block the mordent. That way they don't have to worry about getting to and from quickly. So now we have after that, then it becomes quite a bit easier to break that mordent apart and play it nice and smoothly. Doesn't hurt to also use a metronome. Then measure 14. Measure 14 is just a standard run. So a couple things to keep in mind is you want your fingers to be very live, and you want to make sure that your wrist is taking your fingers wherever they need to go. And you need some rotation in there too, always, not just in scales, everywhere. You do not want to keep your wrists flat. You want to make sure that they're moving back and forth. So if you're having a problem playing the scale evenly, try playing it in slow motion and focusing on where your wrist is pointing. Play it fast and staccato. So, and then when you bring the two together, it's not going to be that fast. It becomes nice and even and pretty. So just two things to keep in mind. I wouldn't do the rhythms for this, especially because it really is just scale work. And so if you're practicing your scales, this should be something achievable. You probably just need a little bit of slow work to choreograph your body to it. Okay, and then we have the trill at the authentic cadence towards the end. Was it the second to last chord? So that can be played several different ways. For one, it's an ornament, so you could just do. I wouldn't, but it is something that if you're really struggling with the trill, you can. I like how it's written. So if you can get, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? As it's written, I'm actually referring to the book I'm using, Jane McGraw's Masterpieces with Flair, book 1. She wrote in a little, or she wrote out the trill, I should say, above the chord, and she has 8 notes there, so 30-second notes. But you can lessen that to 6 if you're having a hard time with that. Oops. And that sounds good too. So it's something to keep in mind. I like to use 1 and 4, not 1 and 5, because 5 and 4 is kind of weak. Now, if you have a smaller hand, you don't really have a choice in the matter. But if you have a bigger hand, I find that much easier than that. So just because of the strength of the fingers. Also, to keep things legato. The left hand, you can do a pedal fingering 5 and then switch to 2. Or not. You can also pick it up with your pedal. You don't pedal very much with Baroque music, but you can use pedal to kind of smooth things out, use it as a filter. Another thing you can do with the trill is you can add retardando. And that'll fit the notes in a little bit better too. So there are a couple options here. Okay, so I want to talk quickly about the dynamics. Again, I'm using the Masterpieces with Flair book, and so the dynamics that are written in this book are editorial. They are not written by Bach. This is written most likely for a harpsichord, which means it didn't get louder or softer, so there was no mezzo forte, crescendo forte. But because we have a piano, we need to keep our own instrument in mind when we're playing. And so I do follow her dynamics. I actually think they're great, although you have several options here. You don't have to follow hers, but make sure you don't just play mezzo forte all the way through. Make sure that you get louder and get softer. Add some spice to the music. I also like the slurs that are written in here. They separate the phrases. So I think it's a good idea to lift between phrases. If you're using the pedal, definitely let go of the pedal between phrases too. Although I wouldn't use a lot of pedal on this piece. I'd keep it pretty sparse. The pedal did not exist on the harpsichord. So we do use the pedal on Baroque music, like I stated earlier, but sparingly, not too much. You don't want it heavy. Lift, lift. Now, because I've slowed down to say lift, that kind of broke up the lines a little too much, but I'll play it again without that breaking, and you can hear how nice and clear that is. It just makes it more interesting. I also think it really works well because of the crescendo that is written in there, which again is not true to the original music, but is a great idea because then you could do all 3 phrases, one louder than the last. It's a great building or like stair that you can do. I believe that is it. I'm looking through the music trying to find anything else that might help somebody learning this piece. If you're a teacher, you should definitely incorporate this piece into the pieces that you give your intermediate, not late beginner. I'd say early intermediate students. Especially, it's such a great way to introduce the importance of chord analysis and how the chords are functioning. There are so many secondary dominants in here. And so that is a great thing to go back to as the student gets better with their theory analysis too and be like, hey, Look at how this is functioning with this next chord and see how well that sounds. I hope you enjoy playing and performing this piece, and happy practicing to you all.